Hey, hey, hey. How are you doing today? I am doing, I'm doing. How's that? Um, I am streaming, everyone. This should be going out to Facebook, to YouTube, and to Periscope, which is also Twitter, I suppose, in some way or another. I don't know. So, there are going to be people that say, "Why, you're looking rather Hasidic today." I'm aware the beard and the porcupine does have that appearance to some. I love this hat, though. I also, which I think this makes me look more like a fisherman than anything, which is okay. I don't fish, but I understand the sentiment. And this is an old boonie. I like this as well. Which hat do I like the most? Why do I need a hat? All of those are good questions. Well, all those are questions. I like these big wide hats because the sun, if you are going to be outdoors in the public where the scary bob, for those that aren't familiar, bob is the big orange ball. You see, in Washington State, you don't get access to the sun nearly as often as you do in, say, New Mexico. Both are lovely places, though. And as soon as, you're in the motor pool or something and the clouds part and you start to see the rays come down with that vitamin D that so many people seem to crave. And someone goes, "Oh, the sun's out," instantly. Dude just runs and hides. So you got to give him a nickname. Bob, Big Orange Ball, seems to be what we all settled on. Now, I do love this hat. I got this hat in Oklahoma, actually. Of course, I put this on and I added the little green button. Sometimes I think I should have slid it forward a little more, but I like it. I may do or add more to it. This is a porcupine hat. And I didn't take it off because, I look Hasidic. No, that was just a reference because I thought it was funny. That and the thank you. See, Gogo says, "Bless you." George has no vocal cords, but he can at least thump around like Morse code me. Yes, I heard you. Thank you, Gogo. Anyways, I did a whole 4 minutes of rambling. I should change the name of the channel to the Rambling.j. Damn, I already did. So, nope. I kind of like this. I could probably do better. Obviously, this isn't the podcast, but I did make that. I like that one because it's not. The way the letters just kind of float. Like this one looks better, but I don't know. I did make a new video because everyone has seen this intro. Fantastic. Lovely, classy, very, very professional kind of thing that you'd really look out for. Well, I went ahead and made another one, equally professional and respectable, because I am a respectable podcaster. Same music though, but here we go. This one has a logo. $20 social credit points. Boom. Because I nailed it. Yes. Hello, Teresa. Thank you for popping in. And of course, I got to have this scrolling at the bottom. And boom. Now, I like the minimal, but some people like the block. Or, I'm sorry, the bubble. Some people like the block, but I prefer bubble or minimal. Let me go with minimal at the moment. And Swamp Dweller. Anyone that follows Swamp Dweller, just post a new video. All right, so anyone who may notice, there's a hashtag Geeky Pixie. Yes, there is some online drama. Shocking. Now, I bring this up because I have, on multiple occasions, at least two, I have shared some music videos, anime type videos that are very well done. Music is good. It matches. Some with Queen. Lots of Marvel or Star Wars or DC movies, like mixed in, and good stuff. Really nice. And the person who did these was a young lady, mid to late 20s, American Asian, who was very positive and always said nice things. Very kind person. And I enjoyed the person's content, and I engaged with this person multiple times. Always in a positive, be yourself, don't let others attack you, you know your truth kind of way, just trying to be a positive force in a young person's life. Well, it turns out that everyone has been catfished. This nice young lady is not a young lady. It is a man in his 30s who used Photoshop technology and voice changing something or another in order to present themselves as this young female. Which again, I can see how people would be upset, but I also can sympathize with the person. You don't want to put yourself out there, so online you make a character, and you try to, interact with people in a way that makes you comfortable. My name is not Doc. That is a nickname given to me. And Jay is not my last name. It is, in fact, my first name. Also, this beard is real, but you may notice the grayness changes from time to time. Yes, I use color to try to fill it in a little bit. Need a little more on this side. See? All these things people do. So this gentleman, this young boy, or I guess young adult, Jared, going by the name Geeky Pixie, and all that. Yeah. If I maintained a friendship with someone and found out this much was untrue about them, I could be upset. Now, I understand some are more upset because there was money raised and some really personal details and some romantic interactions. And that is very, very uncool. I can 100% sympathize with someone using an avatar, a fake name, that sort of thing. But when you entirely present yourself as someone you are not, use someone else's identity, or you use this false identity in a way to interact with others and manipulate them, that's not in any way okay. And for those that brought this person into the community, and for those who have interacted with this person more so than I did, don't blame yourself. You feel used, you feel naive. Yeah, don't use that as an excuse to cut yourself off from others. You don't feel guilt because you trusted someone and they betrayed that trust. Trusting someone isn't a bad thing. It's a very difficult thing. That being said, I would like to move on to something positive. I consider it positive. I have to say that I don't have any strong major opinions on a lot of things with people. If you're an adult, you do what you do, and not my business. Now, there is a young lady. I say young lady. She is probably not that young. I don't know, 20s, maybe 30s. And let me go ahead and share this. I know. Slow start. Blame someone other than me. All right. Boom. All right. Now this is Sarah Higdon. I will read verbatim, so forgive my colloquialisms. Y'all, this is the last option I wanted to do, but I have started a GoFundMe to get help paying for bottom surgery. Last week, I found out there was no way to get insurance that would help pay for it out of state, and there isn't a single doctor this surgery in Georgia. All right. Now, I believe this is a 33-year-old, I believe was what I read in a bio. This is an adult who has fully looked into this and knows the ups and the downs, right? This isn't a child. This isn't a young person making a rash decision. This is someone who is well versed and knowledgeable. Now, whether you agree or disagree with this person's choices, not asking you to agree or disagree. Hell, I don't even think it matters if I agree or disagree. This is the GoFundMe. Now, we are talking about a intelligent, kind veteran, right? A veteran, a libertarian. My very limited interactions with this person has been extremely respectful and very, very kind. As you can see, $530 raised. Now, this is not someone asking for taxpayers to bail them out or demanding anything. This is someone who is old enough to make that choice, someone who served their nation, and someone who is trying to handle this on their own. They've looked into insurance. They're trying to go about this in a way not asking for charity. So, there's a link on YouTube and on Twitter. It won't share the link on Facebook. I may be in trouble on Facebook again. But hit me up. I'll send you a link. And I'll throw a link in the description of the video on YouTube. I think it would be nice to see this person get some help with this procedure. And again, let me go ahead and share again. Here is their Twitter bio. A transsexual Catholic veteran, Second Amendment supporting, libertarian, voluntarist. Do what you want, love who you want, keep the government out of our business. I don't think I could say that any better. That's fantastic. And this fantastic person whom I am very new to their online presence has a very interesting YouTube channel where they do some in-depth discussions on the election, on politics, the trans community, libertarianism, and definitely seems to be open-minded to discussing people or with people who do not share the same ideas. So, I know times are tight, but if you can, throw a few bucks to help out a fellow veteran. Now, on with the show. Yes, I know, Coco. All right. The first topic I want to bring up is something that doesn't exist, except for the part where it completely exists. This is the Special Forces Underground. That's right. The SFU. Also colloquially referenced as the Shut the Fuck Up. It is a heartwarming story of a far-right, lunatic, fringe, conspiracy peddling Special Forces bigot. The Pentagon's ridiculous failure to stop soldiers at Fort Bragg from passing around his racist newsletter, and the professional militia he claims is waiting for an order to overthrow the corrupt U.S. federal system via military coup in favor of some god-awful dystopic vision of white power governance. That's right, the SFU, which is not Southern Florida University. The few, the proud, the racist and murderous, a shadowy elite of U.S. soldiers. The story of Special Forces Underground is a tale so bizarre that it has to be true. It all starts with Stephen Barry, the group's self-proclaimed founding father. He possesses a service record full of ups and downs. By most accounts, Barry's skills and education as a military scientist and specialist in unconventional warfare fall somewhere between competent and brilliant, to be fair. Now, after washing out of Ranger School and West Point, he had to stick with the enlisted route to military advancement. Now, in 1977, he managed to qualify for the Special Forces. That's right, the U.S. Army's elite fighting force where everyone has a secret security clearance and peak physical fitness, emotional stability, and a healthy respect for U.S. government are not on the list of requirements, as will become increasingly apparent while reading this story. With advanced training as a sniper and advanced training in military intelligence, Barry became an instructor at the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare School in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, an institution which proudly proclaims it leads the way in creating the world's finest special operation forces. The Green Berets. That's right. Now, Barry himself, he is a man of colorful habits, which might seem inconsistent with membership in the most elite fighting force that the American military has to offer. A reporter from a certain San Diego newspaper described a visit with Barry in the year 2000. Barry wore a kilt and no shirt, his usual attire at home. Besides the pistol on his desk in a tiny office, what appeared to be a crude time bomb was nailed to the wall above his head. Terry, who was shot at firefighters from a nearby fire station when they wandered onto his land, would not say whether the device was real or fake. Now, in 1985, Barry left the Army to become a soldier of fortune, as reported, appropriately enough, by Soldier of Fortune magazine. Among his projects during this period was a trip to the Philippines, where he took contract work of a presumably unsavory sort for an unspecified employer in 1988. Now, some have insinuated that his assignment may have involved government death squads that were active at the time, which efficiently terminated threats to the Philippines' national security, such as poverty-stricken farmers seeking a living wage, and other like-minded communism. Now, the Philippines has had no shortage of death squads in its troubled modern history. The squads of the 1980s had the distinction of being funded by the CIA, allegedly, as well as a handful of right-wing anti-communist organizations in the United States, allegedly. Another right-wing anti-communist organization which set its sights on the Philippines around this time was Al-Qaeda, which was connected to Rumsfeld and the CIA at the time. Now, I draw no conclusions from the preceding paragraph. Any intimations of weird and illicit connections you might imagine are strictly your own problem and without a doubt entirely coincidental. No, YouTube, I am not insinuating any of this to be anything remotely close to accurate. Coincidental. Berry returned to the U.S., where he first took up publishing as a career, briefly putting out an anti-Vietnamese newsletter in California. Before returning to his roots as a redneck and a military officer, he was welcomed back into the Special Forces in 1989, allegedly, where he spent the next several years. By his own account, Berry was just your run-of-the-mill, race-baiting, camel-smoking, whiskey-drinking, gun-loving, former death squad-working, be-kilted elite military killing machine up until August of 1992, where he became outraged by the Ruby Ridge incident, a siege in which hundreds of federal agents took on a collection of white supremacists, basically Randy Weaver, his family, and a few hunting dogs. They were all murdered. Weaver's wife, Vicky, was shot in the head by an FBI sniper while holding an infant in her arms. The next day, allegedly, Berry, who made a good living as an employee of the federal government, came up with the idea that he should publish a newsletter dedicated primarily to overthrowing the federal government, naturally, from which he made a good living. However, he didn't act on the impulse until the Waco siege, an event which would prove important to Berry's career on multiple fronts. Berry ingeniously decided to name his resistance newsletter The Resistor, not to be confused with the South African anti-apartheid newsletter of the same name. Not that you would confuse them. He wrote under the nom de guerre JFA division. The bulk, if not all, of the Resistor's content consisted of Berry's florid prose. The first issue of the Resistor, surnamed the Political Warfare Journal of the Special Forces Underground, appeared in the summer of 1994 and was distributed to an elite group of paying supporters as gray copies. Those who received the newsletter were encouraged to pay it forward by distributing copied white copies. That's right. Xerox this motherfucker. Spread it out. The newsletter claimed to be serving an audience primarily made up of Special Forces soldiers, both veterans and active duty, and the initial subscriber roll was estimated at somewhere between a couple hundred and a couple thousand names, allegedly. Now, according to issue 1, the pro column of the mission statement of the Resistor wasn't terribly disturbing on the face of it. The philosophy of the Resistor is straightforward. Strict constitutionalism, isolationism, laissez-faire capitalism, individual rights, limited government, and republicanism. Republicanism is not to be confused with the Republican Party. Republicanism means, 10th Amendment, states' rights. While some might quibble with the politics, the general principles here aren't too dramatically different from the stated beliefs of Pat Buchanan wing of the Republican Party. When you get to the con column, however, the code words start to blossom like mushrooms in a shit pile. The Register opposes statism, liberalism, tribalism, socialism, collectivism, internationalism, democracy, altruism, pull politics, and the New World Order. Yeah. Code words. He would not approve of the way I look in this hat. also would very much not approve of Donald Trump. In an essay opposing democracy, the Register reported that special ops soldiers had been polled on whether they would be willing to confiscate weapons from the American public, in violation of the law, though the survey did not specify that. As it turns out, the allegation was true, and the second issue contained a much more detailed report. The newsletter also intimated that Delta Force members had advised the FBI on how to conduct the Waco raid. This allegation also turned out to be true, and actually was the subject of reports in subsequent issues of the Resistor, which spiraled into a full-scale scandal. In part because of Barry's leaks to the media, first to Soldier of Fortune, then later to other, more credible outlets. The story of Special Forces participation became widely known and was eventually substantiated in the mainstream press. Special Forces commanders consulted with the FBI over the plan and also allowed Delta Force commandos to be on the scene during the disastrous raid on the Branch Davidian compound. Barry also leaked an actually true, but officially denied, story that some Special Forces soldiers mutinied against their orders to disarm right-wing Haitian rebels during the 1994 Clinton-sponsored invasion, with the implicit support of their commanders. By sheerest coincidence, though, the rebel group in question had been funded with help from the CIA and its military counterpart, the Defense Intelligence Agency. Perhaps you're seeing a pattern here. I would like to remind you, and especially you, YouTube, I am not saying there is a connection at all. Now, in addition to featuring actual insider news, the Resistor benefited from its colorful and reasonably competent prose, as well as its coverage of the hot issues among white supremacists of the day, mainly Waco, but extending to every criticizable form of government activity, from migratory bird protections to the accusation of CP fetishes among ATF agents. Soon, the underground newsletter was a hit at gun shows and armed compounds around the country. Later editions of the more radical and openly racist Resistor would say, "Personally, I am sick and tired of listening to whine and kvetch about their terrible event that happened in World War II Germany. And when I am afflicted by it, my reaction ranges, depending on how much tolerance I was graced with that day, from studied indifference to remarking that if the bad thing that happened in Germany during World War II was their aim for locking them up, they were uncharacteristically inefficient about the whole thing and criminally wasteful with precious logistics in a time of war, because all the Germans had to do was..." And then he describes a much more efficient and heartless way of doing that bad thing that they did. Now, this is completely side topic. There is a wonderful, wonderful film. It was on Amazon. I'm hoping it still is. I think it's called Conspiracy. I know that's a bad word. Essentially, it is the Yahtzees at a dinner party discussing the bad thing that they are doing and coming up with the most effective ways of doing it. And one of the things that is mentioned by one of these high-ranking people, and this is all based on actual transcripts from a meeting, so it's not just made up. soldiers were having a difficult time ending the lives of citizens of their country, people they knew, people, that spoke the same language. Politics aside, people had a difficult time with all that. And that is why this fucking horribly racist person's thing. Anyways, Surgeon General David Satcher, the second bell curve proof. Yep. The bell curve proof is a horribly racist thing from the past. The Surgeon General had things that he claimed people of color, black people should never be permitted to practice medicine on white people. Declared that the black people propensity for puerile and violent behavior is, according to a horribly racist thing, leading health indicators and address a broad range horribly racist. And one might argue social concerns. No fucking kidding. Everything that's said is just awfully, horribly racist. Surgeon General David Satcher, bell curve, just look that up and it's awful. It's fucking awful. We're discouraged from pondering why America needs a Surgeon General who neither practices surgery or is a general in the first place, let alone why every Surgeon General appointed this administration has been a black person. However, I know why. It is because our government really does hate us. Whew. That's like a four-layer lasagna of racism right there. Now, soldier of fortune writer James Pate helped the resistor increase its influence rapidly, in addition to performing small but unjournalistic favors for Barry, such as renting a post office box for use by the resistor staff and assisting with typesetting. Pate benefited from Barry's tips about shady dealings among Special Forces soldiers, past and present. Eventually, the relationship grew, and soldiers of fortune distributed a sample copy of the resistor to its readers. Yes. By sheer chance, doubtless a meaningless and arbitrary coincidence, and proof that God does indeed play dice with the universe. One of the SOF copies of the resistor made its way to a young man named Timothy McVeigh, who never would have come across this stupid racist magazine otherwise. Now, McVeigh was also obsessed with Waco. Now, McVeigh also tried out for Special Forces at Fort Bragg, where Barry had been stationed periodically, and near which he had set up housekeeping. When McVeigh blew up the Alfred E. Murray building on the 19th of April, 1995, horrible, horrible act. He left a stash of literature in his car for authorities to find. Stuffed into the envelope was his beloved copy of the resistor. Less than 2 weeks after the bombing, JFA Davidson appeared on 60 Minutes, shrouded by dim lights and electronic voice filtering. Ominously, he told the reporter that the U.S. government was the enemy, and that his super-secret organization's most powerful tool was its super secrecy. Apparently not thinking through how appearing on 60 Minutes might, defuse that particular weapon. Now, as recounted by Southern Poverty Law Center report on the SFU, the interview was strikingly cartoonish. Now, I never want to ever give any positive attention to the Southern Poverty Law Center. They are completely moronic, and they believe that the OK symbol is a hate sign. They also think Pepe the Frog is a reason to shut someone down, as is the Gadsden flag, because we all know how those New Hampshire Confederates were. Yeah. But even they get to laugh at Barry. Introducing Barry's political warfare journal, Croft told his listeners that it used the same inflammatory rhetoric espoused by the radical militia movement and portrays the U.S. government as the enemy. The command says, "You don't exist," Croft told Barry. That's excellent, replied Barry. Great, exactly. How do we know you're not the only one in the organization? You don't. Barry, who was accompanied by a similarly disguised associate editor of his publication. We won't comment on numbers, names, or affiliated individuals. That's a breach of security. Not surprisingly, the televised appearance was the beginning of the end for the Special Forces Underground, at least in its underground capacity. See, the first stage of political scandal is denial, and the Pentagon leapt into action immediately after 60 Minutes episode hit the air. First of all, there are lots of underground publications in this country that bill themselves as a lot of things, so I don't know that I would immediately accept the premise of the publication's masthead. We do not, at this point, have any evidence that active duty military personnel are involved in this production or publication of that product, nor do we have any indication that the product is produced on a military installation or with government equipment or on government time. So we are certainly aware of the publication. It is not permitted to be distributed on base. Right. So, naturally, this official statement was 100% accurate. Well, actually, it was outwardly poo-pooing in the minor media frenzy following the report. The Pentagon began quietly investigating the SFU. Given the short attention span of American journalists, the investigation was not placed on the front burner until the resistor popped up in the middle of yet another embarrassing incident. In December 1995, 3 soldiers stationed at Fort Bragg murdered a black couple near the installation. Anyone who has been to Fort Bragg knows near the installation means Vietnam, and that place is a hoot. Anyways, one of the soldiers had been well known as a white supremacist, and a copy of the resistor was said to have been found in his locker. How? How is he well known as a white supremacist and still in the fucking army? That's what I want to know. Hank. Really? Fuck. I mean, in today's army, if you're fucking late on your car payment too many times, they want to boot your ass out. But no, I guess in 95. Well, back when Clinton was president, as long as you weren't a homosexual, it was okay. But man, he would boot your ass out in a second. Don't ask. We won't tell. Anyways, another soldier came forward to complain that Barry had given him a copy of the resistor in the Bragg parking lot. The accumulation of incidents prompted a congressional inquiry into extremism among military personnel. Clearly, swift and strong action was called for. The Army swiftly and strongly reprimanded Barry and imprisoned him in a desk job, sans security clearance, then swiftly and strongly stonewalled all inquiries from Congress and the press. Yes, that's right. They imprisoned him to a desk job. Congress didn't go away, though, so the military investigated further. Sorry, can't comment on an ongoing investigation. After identifying some of Berry's collaborators and sources, some soldiers were transferred out of Bragg, and others were warned off of cooperating. No one was charged with anything. Despite leaks of classified information and the increasingly extremist tone of a newsletter which did, let us not forget, declare itself an enemy of the U.S. federal government on the very first page of its very first issue. No charges were filed. Berry retired at the end of 1997 without so much as an Article 15, no fine, nothing. But he did retire with full benefits, retirement package and all. Yep, that's right. Man. End of story, right? No, not quite. Oh, freed from whatever constraints the military didn't place on him. Yeah. Berry took the newsletter and his life in an increasingly wacko, racist Nazi direction. Yeah. Including associating with some of the more prominent white supreme groups in the U.S., such as the League of the South, the National Alliance, while contributing to Resistance magazine, a journal mixing Yahtzee love, racial hate, and actually rock and roll. Yeah, like legit music into a simply bizarre concoction. Yeah, I mean, they had a music review section. Not a bad one either. They leaned a little heavy towards rockabilly, but otherwise, that's a side topic. Berry briefly served as the Alliance's military unit commander, according to the SPLC, which means nothing. Among his colleagues in the movement is attorney Kirk Lyons, who has represented and befriended such celebrities as Andreas Strassmeyer, a much talked about but never convicted of anything suspect in the OKC bombing, the Abraham Building bombing, McVeigh. Yeah, totally coincidence. By 2001, Berry appeared to have vacated the Alliance post, although he remains a much sought-after speaker at events. As for the Resistor, it ceased publication somewhere around 2001, sometime around September of that year. Now, you might think this was the this was the result of Berry's arrest or some sort of government crackdown, but you would, of course, be wrong. A 2005 message board response, or message board thread wondering whatever happened to the Special Forces Underground. There is a cryptic anonymous response. Found you folks by accident. Decided that underground should actually mean underground, although pop-up occur from time to time. The revolution will be VOIPED and blogged. Of course, this is presumably from a man who thought that underground might reasonably include announcing the existence of his organization on national TV. In fact, the Special Forces Underground didn't burrow very far at all. Even as he folded up the register, Berry was unfolding the Major General Edwin A. Walker Society, named for a general who had been discharged in the 1960s for being a member of the John Birch Society and who had somewhat improbably been the victim of an assassination attempt by Lee Harvey Oswald a few months before the successful assassination of JFK by Oswald. A vocal segregationist, Walker's last big public event was an indecent exposure in a public restroom during the freewheeling 70s. The M.G. Walker Society describes itself as an anti-communist organization of active duty and retired soldiers who, in the spirit of Major General Edwin A. Walker, are combating Bolshevism and Bolshevist influences within the military. Communism is defined here loosely as anything that has to do with the current United States government. While still not strictly speaking underground, the M.G. Walker Society has done a remarkably good job of moving the SFU back into the shadows and away from the scrutiny of lawmakers and military investigators. Freedom of Information Act requests by this reporter to both the military and the FBI received responses to the effect of, never fucking heard of it. The M.G. Walker Society still claims to publish the Resistor as a 100-page semi-annual journal, in addition to a monthly periodic intelligence report, all available for the low price of $220 per year membership fee. Since the SPLC estimates that the Resistor at its peak had over 3,000 members, even a lower subscription base would still provide the comfortable living in a small town in North Carolina, where Barry still hangs his kilt, a couple miles down the road from, yes, Fort Bragg. Yeah. Yep. The M.G. Walker Society has accomplished one minor feat vis-a-vis remaining underground. No issues of the Resistor since 2000 appear to have surfaced online. And as best as we can ascertain, not a single issue of the periodic intelligence report has ever made its way into the press or onto the internet. However, if you look really hard, you can find some grousing on some white power message boards about how the society asking for more and more money while publishing fewer and fewer actual products. The feds can't nail the SFU for hate crimes, leaking national security information, or conspiring and inciting to overthrow the government. Well, maybe you can get them for mail fraud, right? Yes, I know I got a late start, and we're hitting the 1 hour mark. But I absolutely had to share the story of the SFU. Man, that's hilarious. To me, at least. There was one other much shorter, much smaller thing to go over. I know I should have had it ready. Doobie doobie doo. Strangers in the night. Jaden Smith wants to open a vegan restaurant where homeless people can eat for free. Yep. Now, this is what I want to talk about. A 100-year-old Galapagos giant tortoise found on Fernandino Islands is actually a member of extinct species. That's right. The high hopes of scientists who found a 100-year-old female giant tortoise have been confirmed. Genetic tests have proven it is indeed a member of the species thought to have gone extinct more than a century ago. Presumed to be lost for 112 years, the Galapagos Conservancy and Galapagos National Park Directorate will urgently launch expeditions to find a mate for the female. Latin. Chelanoidus fantasticus, and save the species. The Good News Network reported on the discovery of the tortoise called Fern in 2019. While Yale University began conducting genetic analysis to determine the creature's exact species, researchers had strong suspicions that it was a Fernandina, so launched expeditions on the island to look for more members of her species. Soon afterward, park rangers reported sighting scat and tracks on the volcanic slopes where there could be more turtles around. If found, any remaining individuals will immediately be transported to the breeding center on Santa Cruz Island, where several species of the giant tortoises have been successfully bred back to stable population levels. One of the greatest mysteries in the Galapagos have been the Fernandino Island giant tortoise. Rediscovering this lost species may have occurred just in the nick of time to save it. We now urgently need to complete the search on the island and find other tortoises. We desperately want to avoid the fate of Lonesome George. Now, Lonesome George was a species of tortoise who was well over 100 years old, and there were no mates for him. He was the last, and when he passed, so passed his species. It was sad, but George lived a long and happy life, and I have a George of my own, although he's just a Russian tortoise, which is very common, but he's special. He's deformed. He's got a beak fits. Anyways, I know I only covered one topic, one ramble, but I did want to address the Geeky Pixie situation, as well as bring a little attention to Sarah and her pursuit of her surgery. So I hope this has been moderately enjoyable. It is the 10th episode, and please don't forget that I am always trying to do other streams with other people, my channel or yours, but yeah, that joke's not going to work. That might be deemed offensive. How do fish count? No, they're on their fish fingers. I always called them fish sticks. Who calls them fish fingers? All right. Last chance, otherwise I'm going with a dirty joke. How do you find Will Smith when he's lost in the snow? You got a guess? Go. I see you thinking. Cocking his head to the side. You just look for the Fresh Prince. Prince. See? It's kind of funny. Prince. All right, well, please like and subscribe, and keep your eyes open for the Fresh Prince.